everybody, we are the SpiffyNeedleGeeks, and we are here once again for another Steven Bomb.
Oh my god, it has been too long.
Yes, happy birthday, Steven.
Yes, like all the commercials and advertisements have stated specifically that if not all the episodes in this bomb in some way is going to pertain to Steven's birthday. And apparently from what the commercials are saying, he's 14.
Really?
That's what they're saying, and that's like, I know this is going to be, like, off topic and everything before we get to the actual episode discussions, but it's like, I don't know, with how Steven's designed, with how he sounds, with how he acts and everything, it's like, I don't know. I do not think 13, 14-year-old. I think, like, 9, 10-year-old. So that's like, I don't know.
I pertain Steven's behavior more so due to the ignorance of where he's grown up, because he's grown up with the gems primarily. So I don't know. Like, he probably does have more of a childhood innocence to him, and the show does do a pretty good job retaining that, more so that Steven isn't really like other kids. Like, if you compare him to Connie,
right? I mean, I suppose. It's just, I don't know, I guess it's just because, for so long, like, we had no idea how old Steven actually was, and, like you said, he does have that childhood innocence to him and everything, so we always figured, okay, he's probably like 9, 10 years old and stuff, but it's like, nope, he's a teenager, and it was like, I don't know, I was 14 once, I have a little brother who was 14 once. We were not like that when we were 14. So it's like, I'm sure it'll grow on me. It just, I don't know, it kind of strikes me as a little odd.
Actually, now that I think about it, I mean, with the whole concept of this week being pertaining to Steven's birthday, it's like, did they just make it the week of Steven's birthday, like, just because? Or was there, like, some kind of irony with that? And they say that this week is Steven's birthday because, like, was the month of January, like, the month that the first episode of Steven Universe premiered on?
I honestly have no clue.
I don't know. I don't know if there is some kind of, I guess, hidden detail. We can look around for it later on.
Oh, okay.
In any which case, so just like last time when we did the Steven Bomb, pretty much we're going to do a discussion after each night after each episode, and then we'll compile them all together on Friday, like overall per episode. So, of course, we're starting off with Monday's episode, which was titled The Answer.
And I just have to say, I love how this episode began, because it was like, the whole episode, it begins like Garnet sneaks into Steven's room, wakes him up, and she's like, "It's midnight, Steven. Happy birthday!" And
not really his room. They were in the barn where they left off from Paradise.
Regardless, she woke him up, and like the first thing that comes out of his mouth, he's like, "Are you gonna tell me that Ruby and Sapphire are fusion?" And she's just like, "You already know
about that, Steven."
Yeah, but it was like, I just loved that they made a reference to that from the end of season 1. Because, if you remembered, after they escaped from the whole intergalactic jail, landed back on Earth and everything, and Steven was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you were a fusion," and Pearl was like, "Oh no, we were gonna tell you." It's like, Garnet, the plan, and Garnet just goes, "We were gonna tell you on your birthday."
We were waiting for your birthday.
I am so glad that they kept that little detail.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's like, so of course, since Garnet can no longer really use that for Steven's present, she decided to go a different angle, and she was not only giving Steven his present, she was giving all of us a present. By revealing to us the origin between how Ruby and Sapphire met.
Which is great, because I can only imagine, like, ever since, like, we were first introduced to Ruby and Sapphire, that was, like, one of the many questions that popped in everyone's head. How in the world did Ruby and Sapphire first meet?
And I know everybody probably had, like, their own headcanon about how these two met and everything, and it's like, now I'm just curious. It's like, audience listening, just write in a comment, like, raise your hand. Did this, like, completely destroy your headcanon for these two?
Yes, moment of silence for all of the comic artists whose headcanons were just shattered today.
Yeah, but it's like, but not only did we get the origin story between Ruby and Sapphire, and this is actually going back to the batch of episodes that we got prior to this bomb, and it looks like what they're doing now, it's like, now that we've pretty much had like 2 seasons worth of, learning about Steven, learning about the gems, learning about Beach City and everything, now we're starting to get a lot more information about the gem homeworld. So now we're starting to learn like how their society was before Rose Quartz did her rebellion on Earth and everything. And I don't know, this one really gave us a lot of information.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Garnet pretty much, like, she went back as, like, so the story starts off, like, literally, like well over 5,000 years ago. And the idea was that, like, this was around, probably, I think this was around probably sometime after they started colonizing Earth. And, so they had this, like, arena area, which I'm assuming is, like, something similar, akin to, like, where Pearl trained Connie at. So probably one of those areas.
Probably. And it's important to note that the rebellion has actually started.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's still relatively early during the rebellion.
Yeah, like, I don't think they said it, like, did it just start, or has it been going on for some time? Like, I don't remember if they explicitly stated that or not. We just know that at that time, Rose Quartz has already left, she's got Pearl with her, and she's already been doing her thing.
Yeah.
So the episode it effectively starts us off in this little colonization. We see a lot of other homeworld gems, except for the most part they're all silhouetted. Like, they're not really important enough to the plot to really be shown a figure yet, but we know that they're there.
Mm-hmm. We know that those were other gems.
They're effectively they're just a part of this crowd. That's all they are. Like, they're a part of the society, and we see so apparently. The leader of this colonization, Blue Diamond, someone at this point we've never actually heard the name of yet. Only people at this point have only really made speculations and guesses on if she's actually existed. And sure enough, here she is.
Yeah. It's like didn't they briefly mention, like, Blue Diamond, like,
no,
a couple times before,
never,
season 1?
They've never mentioned Blue Diamond ever. The only diamond we've gotten any pertainance to was Yellow Diamond.
That's what I was probably thinking of. Okay.
Well, what you're thinking of, Ryan, because there was an episode where they were in, like, this temple and they saw this mural that, it looked like it depicted Rose going up against some kind of a gem. And it has led a lot of people to theorizing that these are the diamonds. Like, maybe it's a fusion of the 3, or maybe it's just one of them. We don't really know. But people were theorizing that these were the diamonds, one, because we were seeing diamond shapes, but we were also starting to see some colors involved. So a lot of people theorize, like, we knew yellow existed because that has just flat out been confirmed. People also theorize a blue diamond and a white diamond at least.
Right.
So today we got confirmation of Blue Diamond. We don't know where she is right now. But we know she was obviously leading the colonization at some point in this origin story. So where the story begins and continues on anyway. So Sapphire, she was originally she was an aristocrat of some kind.
Yeah, she's from the nobility.
An aristocrat gem from Homeworld.
Yeah, she comes from nobility. Yeah, so she's very, very high up in society just by the rank alone.
Yeah, and as we know, she has the power to see the future. So she was called in by Blue Diamond for the use of her powers to figure out what's going to happen next with the rebellion. And she was accompanied by 3 rubies. Now, this is what I find most interesting. This is the first time when we've seen multiples of a species on screen at once, or even multiples of a species, like, at all. At this point, we've only ever seen one of each gem, never multiples of a gem. So we see 3 rubies, and they look exactly the same. They sound exactly the same.
They act pretty much the same.
Their only difference is the placement of the gems on their bodies. We obviously have the ruby that we all know, whose gem is in her palm, and then we have the other 2 rubies. One who was on their shoulder, and the other one who was on, like, the back of their hand.
Yeah. But it's really interesting, though, because this actually, like, while, yes, this is the first time we're actually seeing multiple gems of the same type on screen together, it's not the first, like, time we were actually, like, seeing, like, this type of a thing, happening in society. Because, again, going back to the batch of episodes prior to this Steven Bomb, for those of you, I guess, who are, need a little bit of a reminder, we've been getting a lot of hints from Peridot, who's pretty much at this point teamed up with Steven, more so out of a necessity, not necessarily because she genuinely wants to believe in him and everything. She's like, it's just, yeah, she's just with them, born out of necessity. But she's brought up how the pearls from Homeworld, they're just basically meant to be like obedient, loyal servants. They just do what they're told.
They're trinkets.
Pretty much. And then she also revealed that the quartzes, which includes amethyst, quartzes are basically meant to be your soldiers. So, like, big, hulking creatures, and she said, amethyst is technically a quartz, but because she was in the ground for too long, that's why she's so small. I think, I'm not sure if this was directly confirmed, but I wouldn't be surprised or anything, because I think it's kind of fairly obvious at this point. Jasper is probably a quartz.
She is.
Yeah. Rose quartz, fucking gigantic. So, it answers a lot of questions. So, it's like, okay, we know where the pearls stood in society. We knew where the quartzes stood in society. So, seeing a bunch of rubies acting as personal bodyguards specifically to sapphires, it's like, okay, I can believe that.
The rubies were seen as more so like they were also seen as a type of soldier, but they were more so I guess lowly grunts more than anything else.
Yeah.
And the sapphires, I'm curious on how that works though, because sapphires are literally just a type of ruby. They're just blue, and I don't know. Like at this point, it's obvious how that they're basing the classes of these gems based on, like, I guess on like, I don't know, maybe they're I guess how hard the gem is, their value, I guess, in general. Because obviously the diamond's in the lead, because the diamond's just the hardest and the most valuable. But it's like, even then, rubies and sapphires, in terms of how hard and how valuable they are, aren't far behind diamond. So, whereas sapphire's role there wasn't too out of the ordinary, seeing ruby as just a lowly grunt's a little confusing. Yeah, but anyway, so I guess just going over a quick full episode summary, and then we'll kind of just tear it apart as we go along. Okay. So Sapphire was called the colonization, so she can give a fortune to Blue Diamond. She gives her fortune, and the fortune was effectively along the lines of, like, the rebellion are going to come. They're gonna slay a few of our gems, including myself, and then but they will ultimately fail. They're going to be stopped right here. But then, yeah, sure enough, that's when the rebellion, a.k.a. Rose Quartz and Pearl, show up, and they do just as she thought. They end up taking down a few of the random gems around, including 2 of the rubies, which, something interesting that happened as well, like, despite so far that we've seen fusion being this really, I guess, taboo thing among the gem society, the 3 rubies fuse together and just become a bigger ruby, effectively.
Based on the other fusions that we've seen, we've always seen fusions of, like, 2 different gems. This is probably like the first time we've ever seen.
Probably it is the first time.
Yeah, it was the first time that we've ever seen multiple gems that are exactly the same fused together.
Yeah, and it just results as a bigger one.
Yeah. Right, and, I guess judging by the reaction and everything, like, they don't seem to have a problem when you have, like, 3 rubies fusing together just because, they just become one giant ruby. Okay, they're the same. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but overall, Rose and Pearl end up defeating them. Two of the rubies get poofed, leaving the one ruby that we know. And then Pearl was getting ready to, poof Sapphire. And Sapphire kind of just sitting there, ready to accept it. But Ruby wouldn't. And she pushes her out of the way, and the 2 of them accidentally form Garnet. Or as I call, Cotton Candy Mom.
Yeah. When you see Cotton Candy Mom Garnet for the first time, it's like, okay, all right, I do not recall your hair looking like that. All colorful and shit.
So it's like the two of them fuse. They're really confused, and they instantly split back up. Everyone's, like, shocked and astonished by when this happens. Rose and Pearl, they escape, and then everyone starts getting really, really offended and, like, really just, like, hurtful against Ruby and Sapphire for what they did. They were talking about how two different gems fusing together, that's terrible, that's so wrong. And then Blue Diamond shows back up, and she's upset because what Sapphire said did not come true. She said because she did not only did she not get poofed like she assumed, but Rose and Pearl got away; they were still alive. And Ruby steps in. She said, "This was my fault. I'm the reason why the future changed." And of course, Blue Diamond, she realizes this and threatened to break Ruby. She was about to kill her, and Sapphire wasn't having any of that. And she grabbed Ruby, and the two of them jumped off the platform and escaped into the jungle below.
And then began the OTP.
Can you feel the love tonight?
Tonight!
Pretty much, the rest of the episode continued on as the budding of their relationship, but it started off as you would think, like Sapphire. She's really conflicted because her future did not come the way she thought it would. This is the first time one of her fortunes was wrong, and she knew it was because of Ruby, but she wasn't really upset by that. She was more intrigued. Meanwhile, Ruby's freaking out because she knows that Sapphire is so important, and she needs to get her back to Homeworld. But then of course she slowly realizes that now she's technically a fugitive, and she feels really bad for what she's done to her. But as the episode continues on, the two of them, they continue to conversate. They realize, Sapphire is just in general really infatuated by Ruby because Ruby is the first gem to ever somehow break from the timeline that Sapphire sought through. And I like the little gag that they had there. What it was like. I forget, what did Sapphire say exactly? Let me say, hold on. We have the episode on standby.
Oh, like when they were talking about the actual fusion?
Well, in the cave.
Yeah, it was like, I think because Sapphire commented that, I don't think she's ever fused before. So she was like, I've only had one eye. So that, for me, that was the first time of actually having multiple eyes. Whereas for Ruby, she's like, I fused all the time, but, I never fused with somebody else, and that was very new to her too. So
I've never had three eyes before.
Well, but aside from the eyes, the two of them went through the whole episode, kind of going through this feeling that they felt when the two of them when they fused with each other. It was a feeling that neither of them ever experienced before, and they ended up liking it. So towards the end of the episode, the two of them decide to fuse again. They dance and they recreate the fusion. And once Garnet comes back, she's trying to get used to her body, but then she trips down a cliff and runs back into Pearl and Rose Quartz. Pearl is getting ready to tear her down, but Rose Quartz stops her and pretty much but of course Garnet, she's really flustered. She's just like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Well, I did this time, but I'll abuse. I'm sorry. But Rose Quartz tells her, how we feel isn't important. How do you feel about this? And Garnet's just like, I'm confused and scared, but also happy. And
what am I?
Yeah, and then pretty much Rose Quartz just, in a really mysterious, subtle way, just tells her, what you're experiencing is love. And it's like, and it's like this is the kind of thing you'll be able to do if you help us with if you stay here on Earth, if you help preserve Earth. So that's pretty much where the tale ends, and Steven and Garnet have another little moment there, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, obviously, this episode, I cried. I did. I cried. I cried a lot of Steven Universe episodes. This one was no exception. This was really good.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I loved the connection between Ruby and Sapphire. It kind of harkened back to what Garnet told Jamie in that one episode when he got a crush on her, about the idea how love has to bloom and develop, and it was no different here. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, she said, I remember, love at first sight does not exist. Love takes time, and love takes work, and you have to at least know the person.
Yeah,
you don't even know who or what I am.
And that's exactly what happened at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, Ruby was just there to guard Sapphire, and Sapphire really didn't think much of anything of Ruby at all. The two of them exchanged some words, but that was about it. And in fact, there was even a point where, and this is actually kind of delves more into the idea of how gem classes work, where when the three rubies were roughhousing, our Ruby accidentally bumped into Sapphire, And when she did that, everyone around gasped. Like, they were astonished. Like, oh my gosh, a lowly ruby bumped into a sapphire. Sapphire kind of just shrugged it off, but she knew it was going to happen because she could see the future and such.
Yeah, so she's like, no big deal.
Yeah, but that kind of goes into the idea how gem classes are. I guess how gem classes are seen as important as they are. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, and I don't know, like, maybe this is just my interpretation or something, but I mean, it's like, given with what we know now and everything, that's like, because now I'm thinking back to, okay, now that Rose Quartz is gone and everything, because Garnet is considered the leader of the Crystal Gems now. So that's why I'm wondering is, like, you know, because right now, at least as far as we know, that, with the rebellion at the time, it was Rose Quartz and it was Pearl. I'm sure there were some others there. Maybe they were all on Earth or something. Or for all we know, it started. I don't know. But the point is that I find that really...
No, they are on Earth.
I find that really curious, though, is the fact that, you know, with Rose Quartz being gone and everything, where it's like... You know, yeah, it kind of makes you question, you know, well, why wasn't Pearl considered, you know, the leader when she's like the one that has been the closest to Rose, the one who really absorbed a lot of like her teachings and everything. But then it's like you think now you see with Garnet, it's like, yes, Garnet is the physically strongest, but now it's like it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, you know, do you think like because of you know, Sapphire's social status, do you think that might have played a little bit into it?
It's hard to say. I think it's mostly just because a part of it is that Pearl's never really been a lead character. She's more so been like the follower.
Yeah.
And that's probably part of it why. But I do find it interesting, though, how seeing, you know, this is the first time where Pearl and Garnet got to, like, you know, formally actually got met. I found it interesting how Garnet feared Pearl. I thought that was really interesting considering where we see them now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, if you act, and they were actually really clever about this, when you see Blue Diamond, there is a Pearl by Blue Diamond, and you see she's just sitting there, she's just standing there like, you know, her hands folded together, like in front of her head is down and everything. I mean, like, I don't want to say she looked dead, but she looked like, you know, very unresponsive and everything, you know. She's just sitting there waiting for whatever orders are to be given. Yeah. Compare that to the Pearl that we have now, let alone the Pearl that you saw in this episode. I mean, it's like, my God, Rose, what did you do to your Pearl?
She gave her free will is what she did.
I know, but still, it's like, holy shit.
All right.
Yeah, like based on the description that we heard from Peridot prior, yeah, the Pearl we saw here, as much as it pains me to say it, was nothing more than a hood ornament. Like, she was literally just there to look pretty. Like effectively owned by Blue Diamond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by the way, we should probably also mention that, you know, we're talking about Blue Diamond and everything. Blue Diamond was pretty much, you know, she kept herself covered. So we didn't really get a good glimpse of what she looked like. I mean, we saw enough. I mean, we see she's very tall. She's obviously blue. She wears like a very long, elegant dress or robes or something. But I mean, even she had like a veil and everything. And even then, she was sitting in like a box that was like, you know, that was kind of like covered in like a canopy or something. So I mean, it's like
which went full on cage mode and attack mode when Rose and Pearl showed up.
Yeah, but it's the fact that, you know, while we got a good idea, at least as far as like what her silhouette looks like, we didn't really get like. We didn't get a good look at, like, you know, some of the more, like, intricate features, like, what does her face look like, what do her eyes look like, you know, what is, like, you know, some of the other details on her clothing and everything, you know, I mean, they still kept it pretty covered. So I guess, you know, this is something else we have to look forward to now in the future at some point, is, all right, what is Blue Diamond really going to look like?
Right.
Speaking of which, like, I guess going back more into the idea of how the classes work, we brought up prior about the fusion. Like I said earlier, up to this point, we kind of just assumed that fusion in general was just something seen as taboo on their planet, how it was just seen as resented and just terrible overall. But yeah, we saw, like we're repeating ourselves, we saw that the rubies fuse, and Ruby even said she fused all the time, and that was just something that they did. overall, it's not fusion itself that's taboo. It's the idea of fusing with different gems. Garnet was seen as the first hybrid gem, or fusion, first hybrid fusion, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess that kind of begs the question. Like, actually, my girlfriend and I were talking about this not too long ago over Twitter. Like, I think it's maybe an interracial thing. She thinks it's more of an interclass thing. Both make sense, but there is one big thing we need to figure out before we can come to the conclusion. How do gem classes work? Is it like, are there multiple gems in each class, or is each class represented by each gem?
I would like to say maybe every class is represented by a gem, at least right now, because it's kind of like what I said earlier with, I mean, we know where the pearls are, we know where the rubies are the bodyguards and everything, but then you look at the quartzes, and it's like, you know, the quartzes are supposed to be the soldiers, but within those quartzes, we've got jasper, we've got rose quartz, we've got amethyst. I mean, we have technically different gemstones, but they still belong to the same family, and they all are supposed to have the same class.
But that also goes back to what I was bringing up before. Sapphires and rubies are type of ruby. They're both technically rubies. So I don't know. It's hard to say at this point. We need a little more information to know for sure. But overall, regardless, the idea of two separate gems, whether it's the gem race or the gem class, that's what's seen as taboo. That's why that's why it's seen as such a big deal overall. So I don't know.
Right, but I mean, it's like, hey, we're still at the very beginning of the bomb, so who knows what they've got in store for us throughout the rest of the week.
Sure enough.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting to note, like, when Rose and Pearl actually show up on, like, this little colony or wherever the fuck Blue Diamond was and everything, and we get, like, a little fight scene and everything, when we see the three rubies fuse together and become one giant ruby, you know, you want to talk about a difference of power. 3 rubies, not only they could not take down one quartz, like, you know, rose quartz, but even with that, 2 of them lost to Pearl.
Right. Well, a lot of gems lost to Pearl. I don't think it's more so the idea of how I think it's more so just due to, like, Pearl's own personal training, because she wasn't using her spear. She was using swords instead, which I also found interesting.
Right. But even so, I mean, like, you know, that's kind of like what I was, but, you know, the point I'm making here is the fact that it's like, you know, yeah, we saw 3 rubies fuse together and everything, so even as far as what Homeworld cares about for fusion and everything, that still wasn't strong enough.
But that's also, you know, that's also something else I'm curious about. Up to this point, we've been led to believe that the only way to fuse is through dance. But we saw the rubies there, they didn't dance, they just kind of built a personal 3-man tower and fused that way. And then we saw Ruby and Sapphire, they fused accidentally. That wasn't a dance. Ruby just pushed Sapphire out of the way, they twirled a little bit, and then fused.
Yeah, it basically...
I didn't even think about it like that.
Well, I think it pretty much harkens back to what a lot of people are saying, that at least as far as, like, a requirement, dance or not, you know, what's gonna allow fusion to happen in the first place is, like, you know, really, like, I guess, like, you know, when they're in sync, like, you know, like, their minds and everything, like, when they're all, like, on the same page and everything, when they're in sync, that's what will allow it. For the rubies, that makes sense. Because, you know, the rubies, they're all like, okay, we have to protect Sapphire, fusion, go, there we go.
Well, no, actually,
that makes sense. As far as Ruby and Sapphire, like, I would imagine, like, you know, yeah, 2 of those rubies are killed, so now you're down to 1 ruby, and now you got Sapphire who's ready to, you know, pretty much get killed and everything. It's like, you know, they're both kind of freaked out as to what the fuck's going on. Like, you know, Ruby more so than Sapphire, because Sapphire already knew what was happening and had accepted it. So I guess maybe, like, that one defining line or something was just, like, you know, maybe surprise, or was it fear, or what?
I have no idea. But now that you say that, it also brings up another good point. After, you know, Ruby and Sapphire escape, Sapphire showed concern to Ruby, but Ruby was literally just like, there are tons of me. There's no reason to make a big deal about me. I don't care if I'm broken. There's so much more of me where I came from. So, and we even saw this glimpse, like, the Rubies, they were all pretty much the same person for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Which, obviously gems can have their own personalities, but from how they're raised on Homeworld, they're raised to be the same person. So that makes me wonder, because they actually think and behave like the same person, even look like the same person. Does that mean fusion in general for them is just so much easier because they're in sync all the time anyway?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe it's something ironic. I don't know.
Ironic? How?
I already like their synchronization with their movements. Like, I don't know. It's just something that just popped into my head.
I don't know. But regardless of such, so all that aside, getting a little more into the relationship between Ruby and Sapphire. Yeah, so as I said prior, we see, Sapphire's, she's really appreciative that Ruby saved her, was to the point of even like breaking the flow of time, as Sapphire called it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Ruby, I think, was more appreciative that that Sapphire helped spare her. She saved her life, and then it got into the idea. Yeah, the two of them, as they began to talk more, they spent some time together, and then I liked the little visual representation. Like, for one thing, like when Ruby brought Sapphire to the cave, and then Sapphire kind of like opened up her pushed her hair aside, showing her eye, just thanked Ruby for what she did. Ruby, blushed a little bit, and then a little fire started at her feet. It's like that's what I call this. So Ruby literally, that's probably when Ruby got the hots for Sapphire.
I'm just a hunka bird in love.
That's when the gay started.
Yeah. But it's like another thing, I mean, of course we get a little song. So we get Ruby and Sapphire singing their own song, and of course we get Sapphire actually humming the main tune, for Stronger Than You. Which I thought
loved.
That was a really nice touch. Yeah, so that was a nice touch, being able to hear that tune, but in a completely different song and in a completely different context.
And it still fits perfectly.
Now that I think about it, wasn't it that tune as well that Sapphire was singing in the prison?
Yeah, it was.
Pretty much.
It was la 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 la. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but it's like another thing, like, not only did I find that to be a nice touch, I also thought it was cool, like, I was kind of getting, like, vibes like, Beauty and the Beast, where after Belle was in the castle, they're not really explicit as to how long she was in the castle, which, I guess is up to whoever's watching it to basically figure out, okay, how long did it really take for her and the Beast to really fall in love? Was it days? Was it weeks? Was it months? You could make that same argument here, because they really didn't say, like, oh, they crashed and then, boom, they all instantly fell in love and everything. I mean, for all you know, they could have been on Earth for a little while and gradually, getting to know each other and everything before they do fall in love, they do form Garnet, and then end up running into Rose. So, I mean...
Keep in mind that they are gems. They don't need to eat, they don't need to sleep. They just, and obviously they're stronger than most creatures out there, so they're able to take care of themselves. And not to mention the fact that they don't age. So yeah, there's no real way to tell how long they've been out there.
Right. Which I think was nice, because it's like, again, it kind of goes back to what Garnet was telling Jamie, where it's like, you have to get to know the person. And it's like, to me, that would make a lot of sense, where after they crash landed on Earth, that it was just the two of them for a while, getting to know each other and everything. And then you see they fall in love, they sing, they dance, they kiss, they schmooze, all that shit. And then they become Garnet again. And even then, it's like, again, she's not really explicit as to how long she was Garnet before she ran into Rose Quartz. So for all we know, it's like, it could have been an instantaneous thing, or even then, they had time to really get to know their new form. Like, all we know is that, of course, she had trouble walking, and she fell. That's all we know.
Overall. Now, one more thing I think I do want to bring up real quickly, before we wrap this up. Mm-hmm. The art direction they took at the beginning of the episode. where how while they're on this floating platform above the earth or whatever it is, how all the gems were of a monochrome color.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, we see that the gems are each associated with their own color. Like garnet is of a brownish purple color, pearl is of a pale color, amethyst is just flat out purple, rose is pink, yada yada.
Yeah.
But we see when they're on this rock, all the gems, even the silhouetted ones, they're just a flat color, like a flat color with very little value to them. And even like Rose and Pearl, when they showed up on this thing, like Rose was fully pink, Pearl was fully this turquoise color, but the moment Garnet showed up, Garnet was her normal color. She was, well, at least the normal colors for the first time she fused anyway, Cotton Candy Mom. And I think this was a sign of the deviation that was shown from the society that's from what it's used to. Everyone's used to their own colors, and the moment two different colors fuse together, that's when things started kind of going awry. Mm-hmm. Even Pearl and Rose, who at this point were rebelling, they were still their own colors. They weren't fusion, so they were still seen as acceptable in the society. Their only problem was they were rebelling. So
right, yeah. So I was like, yeah, that is actually pretty interesting.
And then the moment Ruby and Sapphire fall off the platform and land on Earth, they have value again, which effectively means they're fully gone. They've deviated.
So you're being all artsy fartsy up in here.
I'm an animator. That's kind of my job. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe one last thing to bring up, like as far as Sapphire's design, because like Ruby's design has been consistent all throughout, pretty much. But it's like you look at like Sapphire, it's like you do see like because of her allegiance to Blue Diamond, she's got the Blue Diamond design on her chest, very much like Peridot and Jasper had the yellow diamond on them.
And we also saw Lapis had the blue diamond as well, which I find interesting.
Yeah, I kind of forgot it. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
You know what? Speaking of Lapis, like actually something I want to point out real quick. Someone in the I saw a post that someone pointed out one of the silhouettes in the background. They think it looks just like Lapis. The dress, the hair, you even see the shape of her gem on her back. So people speculate that Lapis may have been there. But then some other people actually speculate like in general, if you look at all the gems in that area, for the most part, all of their gems are shaped the exact same way, the raindrop shape. Whether the right side up or upside down is relevant. So people are speculating that maybe all of those gems were Lapises. Which would kind of fit into the idea of classes. Like, that was the Lapis class. Like, maybe gems just didn't really mingle. And then the gems that tried fighting, maybe those were just those were court soldiers.
I'd have to take a look at that. I'd have to rewatch that episode again and take a look at that.
Yeah, I'll look at it myself. Let me see the gems that Pearl destroyed specifically.
Mm-hmm. But now that you bring that up with Lapis and everything, so now you got me thinking, when Lapis, when she first returned to the home world all the way back in season 1, because remember, she made that whole big deal about trying to get back to the home world. So then she goes back to the home world, and then she's trying to contact Steven saying, okay, we've trying to warn her that Peridot and Jasper were coming, and giving them the warning, and you see how Jasper, basically treated Lapis like shit. So now you got me thinking is like, it's like, okay, do like different, like, is this a class thing, or is this something with the diamonds or something? That's like, why would direct servants of Diamond Yellow Diamond treat direct servants of, of Blue Diamond? Why would they treat him like shit? So is that a class thing? Is that just a difference between the diamonds? Like, do only the Yellow Diamond servants just give a shit about only themselves and not bother with the other diamonds? It's like, I don't know. Now you got me thinking on that.
Yeah, because I'm looking back at the episode, looking at the gems that Pearl slayed. Yeah, they look like Jasper. They're big, they're husky, they even have the spiky hair. The spiky long hair. Whereas all the gems that are like seen around in the court, they're more elegant looking. They have like fancy hairstyles, and they all have one thing in common. Well, majority of them anyway have the raindrop shaped the rain-shaped gem. There are some that have a different shaped gem, but those aren't blue. Every gem depicted as blue has that rain-shaped diamond. Which makes me think that all of those are lapises.
Okay.
Let me see after the battle. Let me see all the gems that are hanging around after the battle. Hold on.
I actually just thought of something. I'm trying to remember. It was like the 2 rubies that were defeated. They just poofed. Did they break?
No, they were just poofed. Pearl didn't break any of the gems. They all just poofed.
So it's possible that we have more rubies out there. Like, like, specifically like those 2. Like, wouldn't it be some shit if, like, those 2 ended up coming back and like, hey, we found the other ruby!
No, possibly. But chances are that their gems were just gathered and then done with whatever, I guess, whatever Blue Diamond wanted to do with them. But
okay.
I guess overall, any final thoughts?
Very, very informative episode. I mean, my God, it's like we're just now, now everybody's thinking and theorizing all over again. I mean, it's like, it's confirmed a lot of things. It's, rejected a lot of things. I mean, we just got a lot of information when this is just an origin story. But it provided so much more.
I guess we'll have to wait and see what else is to come tomorrow. Which for you audience will just be the next episode. Join us then.